Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is YAHMAD. Today we're going to be completing a practical paper from my CIE Information and Communication Technology course. So course code 04117. So we're going to be doing paper 3 and we're going to be focusing on data analysis, which is the spreadsheet section from the new November 2018 paper. So paper 3 is a 2-hour and 30-minute long paper. So this paper in particular is quite tricky actually, involves a little bit of maths knowledge. So let me just scroll down to the spreadsheet section. I've already annotated key parts of the paper. So as you can see, we're going to be using square root and finding the power of particular numbers as well. And we're going to be doing an if statement with 2 logical tests. So before I start this paper, I just want to go over some things in this Excel document. Okay. So the first thing I want to show you is if you have 2 logical tests. So in this example here, we have 2 English papers, English paper 1, English paper 2. So let's just see what the comment says. So achieve a pass, both grades have to be more than 50. So we basically have to check on 2 conditions. We have to check for this paper 1 to be more than 50 and for this paper 2 to be more than 50. So to do this, what you need to do is type in equal if. Okay, so the true statement will be if both papers are more than 50, then pass will be shown. Else, the fail will be shown if one of these papers is not more than 50. So if I type in equal if, because I want more than one logical test, I'm going to type in and. So let's just click up here. So let's click on and. So it checks whether all arguments are true, and then returns a true if all arguments are true. So let's click on and. And as you can see now, we can have multiple logical tests. So the first cell we have to check is this cell here. So B6. We want to see if B6 is greater than 50. Okay, that's your first logical test. If I type in comma, we can now do another logical test. So we also want to check to see if the paper 2 C6 is also greater than 50. I've finished my logical test. You can add another one if you just put a comma in, but if you finished, you close the brackets and then you come back to the if statement. So if both of these cells, both of these papers are more than 50, and if it's true, then the true statement will be pass. Okay, let me put speech marks in. However, if one of these papers is less than 50, then the false statement will be shown, which will be fail, as you can see here. So let's close the speech mark, let's close the bracket. So as you can see, Abdullah has passed because in English paper 1 he got 95 and in paper 2 he got 51. So the mark has to be greater than 50. So if I put 50, obviously it's failed. So if you look at the criteria, to achieve a pass, both grades have to be more than 50. So basically both of these papers have to be more than 50 to achieve a pass. So we basically use and to include a couple of logical tests here. Okay, so don't forget to close the bracket to return back to the if statement. So this is where we use and to check to see if both conditions are met to show the true statement. I'm going to show you or. So this is basically if one of the conditions, so let's just read the question first of all. We've got 2 history papers, history paper 1 or history paper 2. Okay, so if students have scored less than 35 in any of the exams, then they will be entered for the foundation exam. So if any of these exam scores are less than 35, then they will be entered for the foundation. So it doesn't have to be both, it just means if one of them is less than 35. So in this example, it's going to be equal if. And instead of and, we want to type in or. So it checks whether any of the arguments are true and then returns a true value. So if any one of these papers are less than 35, then they're going to be entered for the foundation exam. If students have achieved more than 35 in both exams, they will be entered for the higher paper. So let's click on or. Again, we got the option of many logical tests. So let's check to see if the first paper is less than 35. Okay, and then let's also check to see if the second paper is less than 35, which in this case is true. Let's close the bracket to return back to the if statement. So if true, if one of these is basically less than 35, then the student will sit the foundation exam. Okay, and if it's not true, then they will be entered for the higher paper. So comma, we're in a false now. Let's go for the higher paper. Let's put capital H in, and let's close the bracket, enter. So obviously this person, Abdullah, is doing a foundation because in the paper 2 he only scored 23. So if I increase that to 36, for example, not 26, 36. So now both conditions are false because so if students have scored less than 35, so both papers are not less than 35. So therefore we're now going to be showing the false part of the if statement. So they're going to be entered for the higher paper. So if any one of these two papers were less than 35, so it doesn't have to be both, it could be one or the other, then they would be entered for foundation. So if I put paper 1, if we change it to 30, for example, so only one paper has to be below 35, you can see it's gone down to foundation. Okay, just a couple of more things as well. A new function which we haven't done so far. So let's say we want to find out the square root of 9. You simply type in equals SQ, and if you click on RT, so SQRT returns the square root of a number. So if we click on this function here, and then the number we want to find the square root of is 9. So if we click on 9 and close the bracket, it's giving us 3, because 3 times 3 gives us 9. If I drag this down, let me just increase the size. I'll put this in the middle. So obviously the square root of 16 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. The square root of 25 is 5. 5 times 5 is 25, and so forth. Obviously 10 times 10 is 100. We can also do things like this. So if I want to find out the square root of the total numbers, let's say these total here. So if I just type in SQRT, okay, and then if I type in sum, it will basically find out the square root of the total. So it may not be a whole number, but let's just see. Let's close the bracket, enter. Yep, so if you add up all these numbers, the square root will be 16.34 and so on. Let's just do the average as well. So again, we can do the square root, returns the square root of a number. The number in this case will be the average of these range of cells. So we can also apply a function or insert a function into the square root function. So we're nesting the function into square root, and that's the average. Okay, I don't know why that says square root. That should be to the power, so let me just change that. Okay, so what I've done here, let me just delete this, and I'm going to do it again. We're going to work out to the power. So 5, if I click on this cell here, 5 to the power of this cell here, 5 to the power of 1, it's basically going to be 5 times 1, okay, which will return us 5. If I change this to 2, it's basically going to be 5 times 5, okay, so if I change this to 2, we get 25. If I was to change this number to 3, 5 to the power of 3, so it's basically going to be this to the power of 3, is going to be 5 times 5 times 5. So let's change the number and you'll see the difference. So as you increase the power number, so now it's going to be 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. This number will obviously increase. Let's just change it to 5 and you can see the difference. So the formula is this cell here, the power symbol is basically going to be, I think, shift and 6, and then I'm referencing this cell here. You can also type in 5 as well and it should give us the same answer, or you can type in 1. Okay, it gives us that. So I was just referencing to this cell initially. So that's a few things before we can start this paper. So the square root, just remember you're going to type in SQRT, and to work out the power of a number you're going to include this symbol. If you press shift and 6 on your keyboard, you can include this symbol here. And also in this paper we're going to be using an if statement with 2 logical tests. They both have to be true, so we're going to use the AND. Okay, so let's go back to the paper. So task 3, spreadsheet. You're going to prepare a spreadsheet to calculate the storage capacity and sales price for each type of shed. Use the most efficient methods to solve each task. Okay, so let's highlight this. So display all, so all currency values need to be in dollars to 2 decimal places. Lengths to 1 decimal place, so any length will be to 1 decimal place. Areas will be to 2 decimal places, and capacities to 3 decimal places. Okay, so let's move now on to question 10. So using a suitable software package, load a file n183shed.csv. So let's find this file and open it up. So let's go to the folder, let's double click, and here's the file. Okay, so the first thing we can do, we can open up the columns to see all of the information and the column headings as well. So we have like a lot of blank space here, so this is probably where we're going to be inserting some sort of formulas or functions. So let's see what's the next thing we have to do. So we have to now add your name, center number and candidate number either in the header or footer of the spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to insert it into the header. So if we go to insert, it should be under text, header and footer. I'm just going to insert my name in a header. So let me just see what we need to insert. It's name, center number and candidate number. So I'll write my name. I'll put the center number in here, so I'll use 5678, and then for candidate number I'll use 1234. So there's no specifics on how we insert the header and footer, so it just says to make sure the name is either in the header or the footer. There's no specifics about alignment or anything like that. The next thing we need to do is save this file as a spreadsheet called shed underscore followed by candidate number. So mine will be shed underscore 1234. So to go back to normal view, just click anywhere and go to click on view, and then you can click back to normal. To save this file, you go to file, save as, and we want to save it as a spreadsheet, so we need to select Excel workbook, and then what's the file going to be called again? It's going to be called shed underscore and then your candidate number, so 1234, and we can save it into the same folder as the source files. Yep, I'm happy with that. Double check this Excel workbook. Save. Okay, next thing we need to do is insert 5 new rows at the top of the spreadsheet. So to insert 5 new rows, you simply click on a number and you right click your mouse and click on insert. That's the first one. Again, we keep going until we have 5 new rows at the top. So 3, 4, 5. So we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoops, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows at the top. Okay, let's have a look now. What do we need to do? Add these labels and format the cells to look like this. Okay, so basically the 6th row will be, if I go back to my Excel, will be this row here. So we just need to insert some content into cells above. So the first thing we need to do, you can see this cell has to be merged all the way to the K cell column. So A is merged all the way to K, so let's merge that together, and then the size of the row has been increased as well. So let's merge from A to K. So if you highlight the cells and go to home, you can click on merge and center, which merges the cells into one cell, and then we can increase the size of the row. Okay, the background will be like a grey. So let me just insert a grey, and the first thing we need to do is enter this text. So Sheila's steel sheds. Make sure you make no spelling mistakes, and let me double check. S-H-E-I-L-A, yeah, steel sheds. So this text has to be typed in exactly as it appears here. And now what we need to do is increase the size of the font. And you can choose a different type of font as well. So what we can do is let's try and get something as close as possible. Let me see, what type of font was it? It's a sans serif font, so let's stick with sans serif. I don't want to have little ticks at the edges. Let's see what we can get. To be honest, I'm going to leave it as it is actually. Yeah, Calibri is fine actually. Let's leave it as Calibri. The second row, you can see it's probably half the size. So what we can do is we can decrease the size of the height of the second row. Okay, so I've just done that. Now we got in row 3, we have to type in cost of steel per square meter. You can see the text is wrapped in both these cells here, so text comes onto the next line. So for row 3, and first of all I'm going to increase the size of the row, and then for A and B, what we're going to do, we're going to format the text or the cells so it will allow the text to wrap. So I'm going to right click and go to format cells, alignment. I want to take this box here, and this will allow the text to wrap, so the text will come underneath itself. And we're going to type in cost of steel per square meter. So let's increase the size of the column. Cost of, is it capital S or was it lowercase? Yeah, lowercase. Steel per square centimeter. As you can see, the text is now wrapped into that cell. Or square, not centimeter, square meter it was actually. So let's change that to meter. Okay, so the text is center aligned. It looks like it's been made bold. So we can zoom in and we can have a quick look. Yeah, center line is bold and it's italic. So let's do that. So center line. Oh, that's center line actually. Bold and italic. So cost of steel per square meter. And then cost factor. So it's going to be capital C. And looks like it's the same formatting. So we can make it bold, center line and italic. So cost factor. And then we can type in for cost factor 2.6 and then 1.54 as dollars. Okay, so I don't need to type a dollar sign. If I just type in 1.54, and then we can format this cell as a dollar. So let's select yep, English, United States, and then let me click down here. Let's select the currency actually. If I right click the cell, format cell, number, currency, change it to dollar. Where's it gone now? Yeah, English, United States. So I always go for currency rather than accounting when I'm doing the formatting for the cells. Okay, so there you go. Now the dollar sign is right next to the actual amount, and the cost factor was 2.6. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy with that. The next row you can see, so add these labels and format the cells to look like this. So obviously the next row as well, you can see this content of, or the headings are center aligned and they seem to be bold and italic. So what we can do, we can center align the headings, we can make them bold and we can make them italic. So let me just increase the column sizes slightly so it's obviously clear. That's maybe too big. There we go. This one we can increase slightly. Okay, so job done. If you look, guys, there's lots of marks here. 6 easy marks to be picked up. So always pay special attention. Just make sure you check to see if you've got the right font styles. The formatting has been applied, so bold and italic and centerline. So just double check everything that you've done. Make sure there's no spelling mistakes. So I think I'm happy with that. Let me save the changes. Okay, let's look at the next question. So question 12. What we need to do is enter formula in cell F7. So let's look at where F7 is. So this is F7 here, so the floor area. Okay, to calculate the floor area of the shed in square meters, the floor area is the length multiplied by the width of the shed. So it's basically going to be B7 multiplied by C7. I've already annotated this paper, so it's going to be basically this cell multiplied by this cell. So in F7 we have to include a formula, so we multiply these two values in these cells here. Okay, if I press enter, it gives me the answer. So what I've done to help me along with this paper is I've basically annotated and I've included a cell references for each of the cells. So obviously length refers to B7. Okay, so it just makes it easier for me to know what needs to be multiplied together. So that was the first question. So let's look at question 13, and now it makes more sense to annotate the question. So enter formula in cell G7 So let me see where G7 is. So G7 is this cell here, cubic capacity. So to calculate the cubic capacity of the shed in cubic meters, the cubic capacity is, so first of all, again, we're going to be using a formula, it's not a function. So here's the formula. So we first have to add the apex height, which is E7. So the apex height is this cell here, okay, to the wall height, which is D7. Yep, so we have to add these two cells together, okay. Then what's going to happen is, because we're following bid mass or bod mass or order of operations, we're going to multiply against the floor area first, then we're going to divide later. So the floor area is going to be F7, this cell here, okay. And then after, we can divide whatever we get from this point by 2, as you can see. So the cubic capacity is basically the apex height and the wall height added together. That will be included in brackets because that's the first thing we want to do. Then we're going to multiply against the floor area and then divide by 2. So remember, bod mass or bid mass, depending on what you call it, we first work out what's in the brackets. A multiplication always comes before division. Okay, so let's type in this formula. So let's do one part at a time. So it's going to be apex height plus the wall height. So equal, let me open the bracket, the apex height, so E7 plus the wall height, so E7 plus D7. Okay, so we've just done this part here. Close the bracket. Whatever we get from there, we're going to multiply by the floor height. Okay, so the floor height is F of floor area, should I say, which is F7. Okay, and then, like I said, if you follow bid mass, bod mass, then we divide at the end. Okay, so if I was to press enter, that's our current value. Obviously, we want to divide by 2. So now we can do slash for division and then type in 2. And the answer is given us is 7.92. Okay, so that's question 30. Okay, so let's now move on to question 14. So this is an even trickier question. So what we need to do is enter formula into cell H7. So let me find out where H7 is first. So let me highlight. H7 is going to be this cell here, so the roof area. Okay, to calculate the roof area of the shed. Okay, so in this question, we need to use the square root. Obviously, you can see the symbol here, which is the square root. And then we also need to use the power of as well. So we use this symbol to work out the power of a particular number. So before we answer the question, let's have a look. So the roof area is basically going to be 2. So we've got 2 times the length. The length is in B7, as you can see here. Okay, times, and then the next part will be the square root of whatever's in here. So to work out the square root, as we did before, you need to type in SQRT. And it's basically going to be the width, which is C7, divided by 2. Because we have it in brackets, we're going to do this first. Okay, and then we need to work out the contents of this brackets and work by the power of 2. As you can see here, we've got a little 2 here. Plus, again, we have brackets. Okay, the apex height minus the wall height. So the apex height is here, minus the wall height, okay, to the power of 2. Okay, so whatever we work out will be to the power of 2. So it probably looks more complicated than what it actually is, but if you break down the question and if you include the annotation, it should be hopefully quite straightforward. So let's do it in little steps then. So first of all, let's do equal 2 times B7. So the roof area is 2 times the length. So equal 2 times the length, which is B7. So let me just press enter. That's the first part done. So we can do it in steps. In the exam, if you're not sure about the whole answer, do some of it and obviously you'll pick up some of the marks. Then you see a multiplication here. So, and then it's going to be square root. So obviously you can see the symbol here, the square root symbol. So if I do star and then type in SQRT, so you can double click, and then what we need to do, it opens up a bracket, and then we got brackets within here as well. So what we can do is open up another bracket, and basically what's going to happen is it's going to be this cell here, C7 divided by 2. So it's going to be, yeah, this cell here. So the width divided by 2. Let me close that bracket. So that red bracket was for here. What we're going to do with that is basically work out the power. So it's going to be power of 2. So if I press shift and 6 and type in 2, then I think it's going to be plus. Yeah. And again we have brackets. We have a bracket here and a bracket here. So let me open up my brackets. It's going to be the apex height, which is A7, minus the wall height, which is D7. So E7 apex height minus D7 should be wall height. Let me double check. Yeah. Again, we can close the bracket, and it's going to be to the power of 2. So let me close the bracket. To the power of 2. Whoops. And then obviously we need to close the main bracket, which is the first bracket, and then we can press enter. Okay, so here's our answer. Okay, so like I said, annotate the question, work out which cells you're going to be referring to. I would write it down on the question paper. So if I was you doing the exam, do what I've done now. Just write down, annotate the question, and write down the formula and do it step by step, rather than trying to guess it all in one go. So do one part at a time and go on from there. So write down the cell references, write down the formulas, include your brackets, and they will make your life so much more easier rather than trying to complete the question at the first attempt. Okay, so this question was 10 marks. There's lots of marks available here. So even if this is not working in the exam, something's not working, just make sure you do something at least. Okay, so even if you did 2 times the length, it would give you at least 1 or maybe 2 marks perhaps. Right, so let's now move on to question 15. So for question 15, we have to enter a formula into cell I7, which is going to be this cell here. Let me just save the changes before I do anything. So I7 is the surface area. To calculate the surface area of the shed, this is basically what we need to do. So surface area is going to be 2 times the wall height. So the wall height is D7. So let me do that first part. So equal, let me double check again. So 2 times the wall height. So 2 times the wall height, which is this cell here. Okay. Times, and then we got brackets, the length plus the width again. So times, I'll do it up here so it's easier to see what we're doing. The length, actually added, yeah, to the width. Let's close that bracket. Plus again C7, as you can see. So plus this cell again. And let's go back to the question. Multiplied, and then we have a bracket. So multiplied, and then let's open a bracket. We've got the apex height, which is E7. Okay. Plus the wall height, which is D7. So E7 plus I think, is it wall height again? Let me double check. Yeah, wall height, which is D7. Okay, we can close that bracket. Plus the roof area, which is H7. That was basically what we did before. So plus the roof area, which is H7. So just before I press enter, so let me double check. So it should be 2 times D7, which is the wall height. So 2 times D7 multiplied by, or times by the length plus the width, so B7 plus C7. Again, plus C7 after we close the bracket. Then multiplied by, multiplied by apex height, which is E7, plus the wall height, which is D7. Okay, and then plus the roof area. Let's press enter. And we have an answer here. I think later on I probably will be rounding these values to the certain points which we have to. Okay, so I will refer back to here. So areas to 2 decimal places, capacities to 3 decimal places. So we'll come back to that at the end, I think. So that's question 15. So there's a lot of marks available here. So basically 20 marks in just 3 questions. Okay, so let's now go to question 16. So it's slightly easier now actually. So enter a formula in cell J7. Let me highlight J7. Let's see where J7 is. It's this cell here, cost of materials. What do we need to do? To calculate the cost of the materials to make the shed. So the cost of materials is equal to surface area, which is I7. So let's just start this, equal surface area. So you've got the multiply, so multiplied by the cost of steel per square meter, which is this cell here. So multiplied by the cost of steel per square centimeter. Now, because I will be eventually replicating this formula, we have to use absolute cell referencing. So you would press Shift and F4 or Function F4. I need to type in dollars manually. For some reason, when I record, I have to type it in manually. And I'm going to press enter. So the reason I've used absolute cell referencing is because I will be dragging down, replicating this formula, I think, eventually. I don't want this cell to be moving, so that's the reason I've locked this cell in. So this is absolute cell reference now. Okay, so we've done that. So question 16 was very easy. Question 17, enter a formula into K7 to calculate the sales price of the shed. So K7 is this cell here. Okay, this is the cost of the materials. So it's basically J7. Cost of materials is so J7 multiplied by the cost factor, which is B4. So it's going to be basically this multiplied by this. Okay, rounded to the nearest $10. So let's first of all do the simple formula. So this multiplied by the cost factor. Obviously, again, we probably will be replicating this formula, so I want to lock this cell because I don't want this cell to be moving. So let me just put the absolute cell referencing in. Okay, but what we want to do is we want to round up to the nearest $10. So what we need to do is at the end, when we round it up, we're going to say -1, which will round it up to the nearest $10. So okay, so if I type in round up, okay, and then for the number of digits, if I do -1 and close the brackets, you can see it's been rounded up to $120. Okay, so I think it was like $111 before, something like that, and it's been rounded up now to the nearest dollar, or to nearest $10. Okay. I think, let me just try something. If I typed in 2 here, I think that it would be rounded up to 200. Let me just double check. Yeah, so there you can see, so now it's rounded up to the nearest 100th. But we want to round it up to the nearest $10. Okay, let's type in -1. Okay, so that's that part done. Question 17. Again, slightly tricky, a little bit different. Right, and the last formula. Okay, so it's been a tricky paper, this one. These 2018 papers seem to be getting more and more challenging. There's more focus or more emphasis on your math skills now. So for question 18, we have to enter a formula into cell L7. Where's L7? L is here and 7 is there. Okay, so what do we need to do? To display the text extra large, if the cubic capacity of the shed is greater than 14, so the cubic capacity is G7, yeah, so if this is greater than 14, okay, and the floor area is greater than 7, okay, so basically enter a formula in cell L7 to display extra large if the cubic capacity of the shed is greater than 14, that's the first condition, and the floor area is greater than 7, that's the second condition. If both these conditions are true, okay, then we're going to display the text extra large. If not, leave the cell blank. So to leave the cell blank, we're just going to leave 2 speech marks. Okay, so because we've got 2 conditions which we want to check and they both have to be true, we're going to type if and then and, okay, to have multiple logical tests. So equal if, and then if we type in and, checks whether all arguments are true and returns a true if all arguments are true. So the true in this case will be extra large. So let's click on and. Oh, what's happened there? Let's click on and again. So the first logical test is going to check the cubic capacity is greater than 14. So cubic capacity is G7. Yep, this one here is greater than 14. So that's your first logical test. If I type in comma, now we can enter a second logical test. And also the floor area, which is F7, greater than 7. So floor area is greater than 7. Now if I close the bracket, it returns me back to the if statement. So that was a logical test. So we got 2. So I've used and because we want both conditions to be true. If I type in comma and we're in a true part now, what we want to say is basically if both are true, we're going to display extra large. So let me copy and paste that and let me type in speech marks, extra large. And if it's not true, we want to basically return a blank cell so we can include 2 speech marks. Let's close the brackets. So in this formula here, we basically got 2 logical tests. You can enter 2 logical tests by typing and. So we're checking to see if this G7, which was the cubic capacity, is greater than 14, and the floor area is greater than 7. If so, then we're going to say extra large, and if not, if it's not true, then we're going to say, or we're going to leave a blank cell. Okay, enter. So we got a blank cell here, but don't be confused. Obviously, when you print the formula, this is what's going to get you the marks. Okay, now we have to replicate the formula entered in steps 12 to 18 for each style of shed. So we basically have to go to the bottom corner and drag this down. Okay. Let's drag it down. And I'm hoping to see something in this column for some of them. Yep, so we've got some extra large down there. So let me save the changes. Okay, so apply appropriate formatting to all cells in rows 7 to 19. So 7 to 19 is here. So I said earlier, let's go up and now let's check to see the settings here. So currency values in dollars to 2 decimal places. Okay, so currency values in dollars to 2 decimal places. So let me double check. So yeah, I'm happy with the dollars. Okay. Length to 1 decimal place. So we don't need to include any formulas. This is just basically formatting. Okay, so we don't need to include any formulas. We're just going to format the cells. So lengths are going to be to 1 decimal place. So let me go back here. So yeah, length is to 1 decimal place. Okay, I'm happy with that. Areas to 2 decimal places. So surface area, we can change this one to 2 decimal places, and also this one here. We'll do that in a second. So if I right click, format cells, number, we want 2 decimal places. Okay, we changed that one. and the floor area, format cells, number, 2 decimal places. Yep, I'm happy with that. And capacities to 3 decimal places. So cubic capacity. So let's format the cells, number, 3 decimal places. Okay, so I'm just double checking. Okay, so these I think all had to be to 1 decimal place, which it is. Okay, I think maybe including this as well. Like, I think that's probably included as lengths. The area was 2. Okay, so I need to do this one here as well. Yeah, so oops. Format cells, number, 2. And I think that's it. Yep, I'm happy with that. Okay, so replicate, and we apply the appropriate formattings. Now it's time to print. So question 21, save and print, showing a formula. Make sure it's in landscape orientation. So let me first of all show my formulas. This is really important we get this part right. So click to show the formulas. So we can decrease the column sizes if necessary. Okay, but what you want to do is make sure the formulas are showing in full. It'd be a shame you've spent all this time making formulas and then you print like this. So make sure the formulas are shown in full. You don't want to mess up now at this point after you've done all of the hard work. Okay, so I've got my formulas. So if we go to File, Print, it's going to be Landscape. Okay, so how do they want you to print? Row and column headings are displayed. So typically when you're printing formulas, you have to go to Scaling, Custom Scaling Options, Sheet, and select row and column headings. Obviously it's going to make it easier to mark if you've got the column letters and row numbers, especially when marking formulas. Okay, the contents of the cells are fully visible, so I've already opened up the columns. Now when you are printing formulas, typically you tend to print 2 pages wide by 1 page tall. So let's have a look. So this is the first page, and you can see the contents of the cells are fully visible. Okay, so let's go to the next sheet. Yeah, the contents are fully visible, you can see. And then you can send this to printer. Make sure your name, candidate number and center number appears on your printouts. Yep, so make sure, yeah. So that's the first printout. Okay, so like I said before, typically when you're printing formulas, it is landscape and normally 2 pages wide, 1 page tall. So that's the first printout. Always double check to see if your printout appears correct. So when you receive your printout, check it in the exam. If you need to reprint, if you spot a mistake, then go ahead and reprint. Now we've got to print a spreadsheet showing the values. Make sure it fits on a single page, and all of the cells are fully visible. So the contents of all cells are fully visible. So let's take the formula off. Okay, so what we need to do is again open up the column sizes. So highlight the cell columns and then just double click here in between the columns to open it up. This one needs to be opened up. This one can be a little bit smaller. So yep, I'm happy to print this. So File, Print. So when you print in the values, you don't need to show the wrong column headings. So we can take this off. And what we want to do, let's keep it landscape, but let's fit it to 1 page. So let's click on Fit Sheet on 1 page. Okay, and we got the name, candidate number, sender number. Just double check to see if you can see all of the contents of the cell, so especially titles. Nothing is cut off. I'm just double checking. Yeah, that looks good to me. We can print this, and we've come to the end of the spreadsheet section. So this was probably one of the most difficult papers I've seen for spreadsheets. what made it easy for me is annotating a question paper, looking at the cells and identifying the cell references, and then writing out the formulas before I actually begun doing the actual paper. So I think if you look at the spreadsheet, you've got 2.5 hours for paper 3, which is plenty of time. Take the time to annotate your paper. So we've come to the end of the spreadsheet paper 3, November 2018. This is a new paper. Please like and share this video. Please drop your comments below, and please show your support to the channel. Please subscribe below. Hopefully I will be completing the website part of this paper hopefully in the next few days as well. So please stay tuned, please stay subscribed, and please tick that bell for notifications. Have a nice day. Thanks again for your time.